Today's video is just sharing some ideas about what to do with your $1 thrift finds. I'm Alana and welcome to my crafting channel at Upcycling NZ. Let's get right into it with project number 1. My first dollar find was this cheeseboard and it had a slot in it for the knife. It might have been a salami board, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm really not digging that blonde varnish colour. So I'm taking 120 grit sandpaper and I'm going to sand that down until the paint has something to key to. I've long since lost the handwritten label on this jar, but it's an acrylic exterior-interior paint. It's almost black, it's kind of a brown black, and it dries much darker. So I'm giving it a generous coat all over, making sure to get down all the sides and into that little crack where the knife would have sat. I'll give this 2 good coats, then I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to work on the back of it on the flat surface. I got these little frames from Temu and an image from a historical magazine of some farmers down in the far south of New Zealand. These guys really exude that rough and ready, hard exterior of some southern men working hard on the land and are very nostalgic to Kiwis. So I've cut these down to fit behind the frames and made sure that the placement is nice and even on each image. And then I'm just going to paste the magazine images directly to the board. I'm using PVA glue and I'm putting a layer over top of the image as well, but I'm not going to get that all over the wood. I don't want that shiny surface to show. Now I probably should have done this first, but I'm just lightly distressing the edges to let some of that wood show through. I'll do the sides as well and it just makes everything look a little bit older. Okay, now that those have dried, I can peel and stick my frames on my images, centering each guy in the middle of the frame. So that's looking nice and old and weathered now, but I want to give it a little bit more depth. So I'm taking some antiquing wax, and this is a folk art product, and I'm just going to apply some all the way around the edges and let the wood that's exposed have a good drink of wax. This paint didn't require sealing, so this is just an added extra. Now I'll just buff it off a bit, and I'm not going to polish it too much or it will start to shine with that wax on board. So now I'm going to take some twine and some PVA glue, and I've created a loop and I'll start winding back towards the round of the loop, attaching some glue and winding that twine on until it creates a band around the top of my little wooden piece. When I reach the top and I've got enough of that, I'll just trim it off, thread that through the loop, and then I can pull the knot halfway through that band of twine and cut it off so that it disappears entirely. Now I'm just burning off the extra fibres. I decided to create 2 options for how to hang this from the back. You could use that hole at the top or this loop that I'm creating, tying a knot around at the front, which my bow will attach to. And I'm making the bow out of this gorgeous little gold and black ribbon. This reminds me of old-fashioned looking ribbon. And I'll cut and trim that off and tie it to the top. Next I'll take some hot glue, and hot glue attaches fabric to fabric very well, so twine to twine is going to stick very well and last. And then I'll put a wee bit more under the bow so that I can make sure that it's not going to move from the perfect placement. I've just got one more finishing touch for this thrift lip, but stick around, the next one is super easy, but I'd love to know what you think of this one. I'm taking some faux acrylic gold metallic paint and I'm just going to go around the edges to tie my piece in with the bow. And this one's done. Project number 2 is this little white pot. I think it's ceramic. It's got a bit of a chip out of the top of it, but I love the shape of this. I want to directly apply some transfers to this. So I have these gorgeous little animal images, and I've got a squirrel and a rabbit. I'll put one on each side, and I'm just cutting off any bits that I didn't need. I ordered these from Temu. And these transfers work very, very well, especially white on white because there's a little bit of white on those transfers. So you peel back the backing from your transfer and lay it down, and I'm holding it in one place with my thumb. I'm cutting slots in the side to make it easy to get around those curves, and I'm using the transfer tool to rub my image on. And you'll see I went through the centre first. That helps you to get your placement right because the flowers, if they have to overlap a little, you won't even notice it. So I had a bit left on my film then, and I just repositioned it and rubbed it down, and now I'm just burnishing it with the piece of transfer film. I'm repeating the process on the other side, and these little animal images have made such a difference to the look of this boring little pot. It's really elevated it. I really love doing these little projects. They're so fast and you get results instantly. So this is looking gorgeous so far, but I just thought I'd show you before I address the top that there's some beautiful natural crazing on this little ceramic pot. Now I need to seal in those transfers, and I'm using this water-based product. It's a polyvinyl from Temu, and it's a high gloss finish. So I'm going to go right over the whole pot. You won't be able to leave this piece out in the weather, but you can put water in it. So you can put a little potted plant, maybe a succulent in it. You could put dried flowers, artificial flowers, cut flowers. I want to dress up the top, so I'm taking this beautiful napkin and cutting off the bolder part of the pattern in black and white. And I'm applying that with the sealant that I used, and I'm using it as a decoupage medium in this case, and spreading that all around the top and gently applying my napkin. When you're using napkins, you need to take the plies off the back of your napkin and just work with the one ply at the front, otherwise it won't adhere properly to your project. So I'm applying that sealant to the top of the napkin as well, very gently. Once that dried completely, I took an emery board and I was able to sand off the napkin all the way around the rim and inside the centre, leaving a beautiful finish by using a downward motion and pushing the napkin away from the edge. Once I had my napkin smooth to the touch, I applied another coat of sealant over the top and allowed that to dry. I hope you enjoyed that little project. If you did, I've got another little project coming up next, so stick around for that one. I've only just now realised that the top detail doesn't show in any of the reveal footage. Sorry about that. Project number 3 was a fun one to do. I found this little $1 box, and I think it's some sort of pen holder or caddy. It's got some ink marks in the bottom, and it's just got some sort of sticker attached to the outside of it. It is made of some kind of wood, so I'm taking these little wooden blocks, and I got these little cubes from the thrift store as well, and I'm going to attach them to the bottom of the box with some liquid nails. Then I gave this several hours to dry before I tried to paint it. I'll be painting this in one of my homemade chalk paints in the colour Crystal. If you'd like to see how I make my homemade chalk paints, you'll find a video called What to Do with Your Shitty Old Paints in my videos on my channel at Upcycling NZ. So I'm going to do a nice generous coat all the way around the outside, underneath and around the top rim. I tested that ink spot at the bottom to see if it would bleed through with the paint, and it did. So I'm going to use some of that sealant to block that bleed through. So I'll just put a layer on the bottom and allow that to dry before I try to paint it. I quite like the pink colour, but I didn't have anything like that. So I'm going to use my homemade chalk paint in the colour Linen White. I name my chalk paints after my subscribers, so I'm imagining my friend Lynn, who I know personally, and she loves to wear white and she looks great in it. So both colours needed 2 coats, and then I've got these really cheap transfers from Temu. I thought I'd try them out. They were super special, something like $3.50 for the set. And I've cut it out. They appeared to be more like stickers, but I did test this out before I put it on my project. And what I found was that if you push down too hard on these, it starts to lift the paint when you peel it off. So very light pressure these required, and I was able to lift it quite successfully by doing it that way, just with my fingers. So you get what you pay for, I guess. By pushing down on that clear film, it lifted some of my paint, so I had to go back and do a little bit of a repaint. So I learned just to push on the image itself and not the clear film around it. I used my transfer stick to press the image on once I had it down successfully. This one leaves a halo around the image. That means that you can see the edges of your transfer. So not ideal, but I'm going to put the high gloss coat on this so that it hides that a little bit and helps to hold the sticker down. So I've done the sides and the back, and this one will be my front. So I'll put one little image there. And I'll attach some hardware to the front. I've got a little bronze looking label holder, and I can't put nails or screws through this because it's not thick enough. So I've cut the tails off some brass brads, and I'll use 2 of those pressed down and glued on with liquid nails along with my label holder. So the last thing to do is put my top coat of sealant on, and then I'll pop a label inside my little label holder. The next project's worth waiting for because you won't believe what I thrifted for $1. Meanwhile, that gloss finish really is hiding that halo quite well, and I like the glossy finish on this. Let me know what you think. I am thinking that I should probably pull out the label that I put in and put some aging antique wax around it to give it that vintage feel. I'd love to know if you think I should do that or not when I go to sell this at market. For now, I'll pop some paintbrushes in this little caddy so that you can see how it looks. Alright, for project number 4, I got this gorgeous wooden frame. It's actually high quality, but I think the colour would have put a few people off buying this, so I was able to get it for $1. It still has the glass, but it didn't have any backing or hangers on it. I have this little silicone mould that's too fine to use air dry clay in it, and I haven't ventured into the use of resin yet in my life, so for now I'm going to fill this with hot glue. Then I'm going to pop it in the oven and heat it up a bit more so that it melts down into all of those little details. Then I let it cool, and just before it sets up, I'm going to flip it over onto my frame so that it cools in the shape of the frame where I want it to go. I'm using the very last of some epoxy glue that I had, and I'll attach that with a bit of hot glue just to hold it in place while it sets up. I am on the hunt for a type of glue that is a lot more planet friendly, so I would love to know if you have any recommendations. I need something really grunty and strong hold. Alright, now I can go ahead and paint this, and I'm painting it in that acrylic interior exterior black, and I needed 2 coats to cover this. I get a lot of remnant paint from restores, from thrift stores, from second-hand shops, and try wherever possible to save these from going into our landfills. Once my paint was dry, I'm taking a little bit of gold paint. This is a Folk Art product. It's a metallic paint. And I'm just taking a sponge and offloading most of the paint. And then I'm going to stipple that on all over my frame, trying to bring out all of those lovely crevices and shadows as I'm working on it. I'm using my fingers to spread it out and to smudge it so that there's no build-up of paint anywhere in particular. I also got this bronze metallic paint off Temu. Obviously, when I order from Temu, I do a big order. Don't hate me for it. I do live in the middle of nowhere, so ordering online is the way to go for me. So it looked really coppery, but once I had it on, it actually looked very similar to the gold, but it added a little bit of a difference in certain lighting. Now, I had these beautiful images of women, and they're just gorgeous, and I've chosen this kind of steampunk feel image. This is a Victorian woman sitting on a balcony in what looks like Paris or somewhere like that, and she's got an owl next to her and amazing hair. It's all curly and probably red, I suspect. I've taken a little piece of packaging cardboard to back my picture inside the frame. And to tidy up the back of the frame, I'm taking some of my black paper that I've been using to do my projects on, and I'll just attach that with a glue stick, spreading that over every single surface on the back of the frame. Then I'll lay my piece over top, which I've cut to size, and apply pressure with my, I love this tool, with the little plastic spatula that comes with your transfers. I find that glue stick works well under pressure. Then I was in a bit of a hurry when I went to cut out the opening so that you can remove the picture and change it out if you want. And I really should have aimed for perfection, but there you go. I have another really easy project coming up next, but meanwhile I love how this turned out. For project number 5, I often come across these, but it's a little canvas and it's never been used, and I got that for $1. It's got substantial wood on the other side, which will come in handy for this project. And I've got a historical image, and the reason I've selected this one is because it's of a town near me in the South Island called Nelson. And this picture was taken over 100 years ago when they were building the Rocks Road, which goes right along the waterfront and is beautifully scenic. And I thought the locals would appreciate the historical significance. So I want to turn my little canvas into a shelf sitter. And I found this wooden block in my stash, and I'm marking where it will join to my canvas and have it nice and centered. I'll attach that with hot glue just while I set myself up to drill the holes. So I'll drill down through my toy block and just start the hole into the canvas. Then I'm going to change out my drill bit for one a bit larger, and I'm just going to drill probably not even half a centimetre into the top of that block, less than a third of the way into the block. And that way I can screw my screws and have them recessed within the block, and they won't scratch any furniture when this is sitting on it. I'll paint the base in that same black again and give it 2 coats. Next I'm going to take some PVA glue and I'm going to decoupage some black tissue paper to my canvas, and I'll start with the top edge and I'll line up my straight edge of my tissue paper along there and let that dictate how the rest is applied to the canvas. The reason I'm using tissue paper is because of all those staples along the open edges. If I painted them, it would still look a bit cheap and tacky that way, so I've covered them with tissue paper and it looks like it was intentional. I trimmed the paper for the edge that meets the base, and I've run my fingernail along it to tuck it away tidy where you can't see the edges, and then I'm trimming angles on my corners, and I'll fold my tissue paper around the edges with my glue, trimming it off as I go and applying glue all over the surface again to really get rid of those wrinkles. I was left with little gaps underneath, and I'm just adding a tiny little square and gluing that down, and you can't see that. I've also repaired a little gap on the sides. Now I'll apply my picture to the front in exactly the same way. Project number 6, I picked up a couple of little cake tins or lolly tins, and they were in good shape. They were $1 each. I'm going to be painting both of these in chalk paints. However, the part I haven't filmed is where I took some old yoga mat that was being thrown out and cut a circle the size of the bottom of the tins so that they can be stacked on each other without causing any damage. Now I'm taking some nail polish remover, and this is a great steriliser and cleaner for tin surfaces and slick surfaces. And then my surface is prepared for some chalk paint in the colour Michelle. And conveniently there's always that nice rim around the edge of the lid so that it can stop your paintbrush for you and keep some nice clean lines. So I gave it 2 coats of the white, and you can see that I left that inner rim unpainted so the lid slips on nicely. Next I'm taking a napkin in blue and white, and I'm removing the ply from the back. I'll cut out one piece which fits over the top there, and I'll decoupage that onto the lid. I'll whip out my handy dandy PVA glue. This is really just Mod Podge without as much varnish in it, I think. And I will put a nice even layer over it, lay down my napkin, and then very gently put a layer over top. Then I'll go ahead and repeat the whole process on the base of the tin as well. Anyway, I'll let you watch. I keep a little smaller bottle of PVA glue for little jobs like this, and I'll just leave those extra pieces hanging over the edge, and I'll sand these off as soon as this is dried completely. And instead of using a bulky sanding block, I'm going to use this nail file or emery board, always sanding in a downwards motion. I'll put a top coat of that high gloss sealant on, and it's really just Mod Podge, and that helps you to smooth down any roughness you have on your napkin on the top. I'm going to finish this one very simply with a little blue ribbon, and I'm going to hot glue that around the rim, and that'll cover up all those wrinkly spots you get at the bottom. I'll tie a little knot in the front. And keep watching, because I'll show you what I'm going to do with these tins shortly. I'll trim the ends of my ribbon off and give them a little singe with the lighter so that they don't fray. What do you think of this? Pretty adorable, right? I'll clean up and prep my other tin with that acetone or nail polish remover. I've chosen the colour Yorkie in my homemade chalk paints. It's named after one of my subscribers' pet. Actually more of a member of the family than a pet. Anyway, you've seen me paint a million times, so I'll speed that up. Then I'm going to go in with a stencil, and I'm going to put the word Sweet Shop on the lid. Because it's from the same stencil, I'll have to do it half by half, and I'm using modelling paste. And I'm just smoothing that across and using it like you would your drywall at home. Smoothing it out and letting it fill in the gap in between. This stuff actually dries pretty quick, about half an hour to 45 minutes, and you can go ahead and do the next stencil. I don't have a white ink pad, so I'm going to spread some paint in the colour white on some glass. And then I'll be able to use that as my ink pad along with my silicone stamp. And I'm just putting on some random vintage advertising. It's going to be pretty hard to read once it's on there anyway, so it's just really there for decoration. I've added a couple more words to the top of my tin, and of course my paint's not exactly the same colour as that moulding paste. So I'll have to go over the sweet shop just by putting the stencil back over and applying a little tiny bit of that white paint to blend it together. Then I'm just going to seal all of this with some clear wax, and this is a Feast Watson furniture polish clear wax, and works in exactly the same way as the craft waxes. You buff it on, and I use a shaving brush for this. Apply some antiquing wax if you intend to, and I'm watering mine down just a little bit to add the age to this tin. Most of the antiquing wax will buff off when I take off my excess wax, but I wanted a very subtle look on this tin. I wanted that kind of cameo look about it in the cameo colours. I waited 15 minutes and now I'm just buffing off that excess wax, and this one's done. If you hang out till the end, I'll be able to show you what I do with these because they're part of a set. Project number 7, I'm going a little bit dark and moody with these very patinaed silver dollar items I got from the thrift store. It's a little gravy jug and a little sugar bowl, I guess. And because I had the acetone nail polish remover on the table, I just used that to clean them. Great for greasy paw prints. I'll use my homemade chalk paint in the colour Natalie. I'm starting to run really low on my homemade chalk paints now, so I'll be making another range in a video very soon. I'll be trying to introduce some more vintage colours because I tend to craft back to vintage all the time, and create some that you don't see all the time. I watch a lot of craft videos and I get a little bit tired of watching the same colours being regurgitated. So watch out for some new and different looks. This took 2 coats of chalk paint, and apologies about the voice. This has been a long video and I am starting to lose my voice a little bit. So for these I'm going to use up some small transfers. These are from the Temu website. They've lasted me for ages. I had a couple of packs of them and I've still got quite a few left. So I'll use the blue and white hues, I think, on these. So again, just lay them out, rub the transfer down and slowly peel away. Lay it back down if you have any that remains attached to your film, and line it up again and it'll rub down just fine. And you'll notice with this transfer there are no halo lines, and it looks like it's painted directly onto the surface. So I'm going to vintage graffiti style this and make a bit of a collage of the flowers all around, leaving a few spaces of the painted surface visible. So here's how they end up looking, very detailed and delicate. With these, I'm just going to seal them with my clear wax. And again, I gave it 10 to 15 minutes and buffed off the excess. I could have gone a step further and put some antiquing wax in the shadow natural shadow areas of these, but I thought I might lose some of that gorgeous detail. So this is my last project for today. I'd love to know what you think of these in the comments. Coming up is the reveal for these, and then I'll show you what I did with those cake tins. Alright, so if you're wondering about the cake tins, check this out. I didn't know I'd find tins small enough to fit on the top of my cake tin stack, but look at this, there's even another little one. So it's prompted me to set a new challenge for myself. I'm going to create a cake tin stack that goes from the floor to the ceiling. Well, I really hope you enjoyed those craft projects today. I love sharing creative ideas with like-minded people. If you're new to my channel, please like, share and subscribe if you enjoyed those ideas. Have you guys ever seen these? Are they fairies?